Let us pray. Almighty and merciful God, when you created Adam, you saw that he was lonely, and you fashioned a companion for him. Since then and throughout history, you have called us to live together in community. You have given us a need for each other, and you have given us the ability to meet the needs of each other. People have gathered in cities and in towns around the world, trying to establish communities that are safe for their children, supportive of the weak, and fair for all, as we have recognized that together we can accomplish more than apart. But in our need for each other, let us not forget our need for you and for your sustaining love and guidance. As we gather here tonight, we are thankful for your presence among us, for your freedom to act in the world, and for your love which binds us to you and binds us to one another. We also ask for your blessings upon those who have blessed us and those who have blessed this community, thereby making it just a little bit more like the community that you would have us, your children, live in. Bless this food to our use and us to your continued service. And to you be all praise and glory and power and strength forever and ever. Amen.
It's really a pleasure for me to be here this evening and to find so many people that are united in support of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Urban League. This organization means a great deal to me personally, and I'm very proud of what it has accomplished in the past years. This evening we honor the memory of the Whitney M. Young Jr. Award, and that particular individual was an instrumental figure in the Urban League movement. He worked tirelessly for equal opportunity in the workplace because he believed a good job was the best remedy for the challenges facing African Americans. In 1994, we started this tradition of presenting the Whitney M. Young Award to an individual in our community here in Charlotte who made a significant contribution for the goals of injustice and equal opportunity. At this time, I'm going to take a few minutes before I introduce our guest speaker to recognize the recipients in the past 3 years. Our recipient in 1994, the very first year of our event, is an attorney from Charlotte who the Observer once called a study in unflappable courage for his efforts in the landmark Swan versus the Board of Education decision, which made busing an invaluable tool for the integration of public schools. Dr. Chambers is not able to be with us this evening, but I wish you'd join me in giving him a round of applause for his 1994 award. In 1995, the recipient of the Whitney M. Young Award is a person who has influenced the lives of thousands of individuals in his community through his spiritual and civic leadership. He also oversees a congregation that stretches throughout the Carolinas and into Georgia. Please join me in congratulations to Bishop George E. Battle. And last year's recipient. She's a living legend in our community. She's dedicated her life to educating our children, and she played an historic role in the successful integration of Charlotte's public schools. Elizabeth S. Randolph was our 1996 recipient. Our speaker this evening is known for many things, perhaps the most notable for taking a small one-state bank and turning it into one of the largest financial institutions in the United States. But that's only half the story. In the process, he also established a corporate philosophy based on a clear understanding that his company's health depends on the health of the many communities it serves. Our speaker leads a company with a reputation for hard work, not just for financial success, but for trying, as Whitney M. Young observed, to change society, to make our system work for all people, whether they be poor or rich, black, white, yellow, or red. In my personal opinion, this speaker is one of the greatest individuals I have ever met, and is one of those individuals who can bring an organization, a community, or a company together by just saying a few words. Since 1992, his company has injected $13 billion into economically underserved communities. This includes more than $200 million for affordable housing. Through its education initiatives, his company has contributed $2 million to improve public education and grants its employees up to 2 hours of paid time each week to volunteer in local schools. And his company's work and family programs are so outstanding that Working Mothers magazine named our speaker its 1993 Family Champion. This world needs more companies like his company, companies that are firmly committed to the health and well-being of their community, and we need many more leaders like our guest speaker this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you my personal friend and the Chief Executive Officer of Nations Bank, Hugh L. McColl, Jr.
Thank you very much, Bill. I never deny anything nice is said about me. I suppose it's customary to start any set of remarks by saying that it is a privilege and an honor to be here. Well, tonight I really mean that. It is a privilege and an honor to talk about my friend, JoeB Martin. So that's what I'd like to do over the next few minutes, just talk about Joe. Someone asked me recently when it was that I first became aware of Joe at our company. I answered honestly that I really didn't know. What I do know is that it wasn't long afterwards before I came to rely on him for almost everything. From whether I should accept an invitation from the President of the United States or contribute the company's resources to a certain cause or give a speech in Tupelo, Mississippi, Joe is my most valued advisor. And I suppose that is the first thing that just about all of us here tonight have in common. It is impossible to know Joe and not seek him out at some time or another for his advice and counsel. One early and memorable chance I had to work day to day with Joe was during our covert operation to establish a beachhead in Florida in 1991. Our success depended on remaining undetected until we had a deal. Joe, then a young vice president, masterminded the logistics, the political strategy, and external affairs surrounding the deal that laid the cornerstone for what our company has become. Joe's wit and genius, his skill as a strategic thinker and planner, his ability to read people in the political landscape, his cool head and ready humor kept us all calm, focused, and ultimately successful during that otherwise tense operation. Over the ensuing years, Joe became an example of all the characteristics that we value most at our company: intellect, decisiveness, leadership, creativity, caring, and a love of competition. But on top of those bedrock qualities, Joe is anything but predictable, and that is only part of his immeasurable value. He is always the same, yet never quite the same. Always able to see something that the rest of us cannot see, even if that requires seeing around corners. All of you who know Joe would agree he is many things, and that is just as true at Nations Bank. He is the father of our company's name. He is the conscience of our culture. He is our executive vice president in charge of doing the right thing. The second role that I would say Joe plays for just about all of us here tonight is that of teacher. His education prepared him for life in academia. To our great good fortune, he steered instead to the classroom of community. Very simply, Joe cannot help but teach in almost everything he does. We're all a bit wiser for it, but I may be the greatest beneficiary. Or if you ask Joe, he may tell you I'm his greatest problem student. When I'm angry, he calms me down. When I'm impetuous, he makes me look at issues through another set of eyes. And when I'm wrong, he simply tells me so. Perhaps most impressive, Joe teaches me humility, and that's impressive. He does this sometimes directly, other times through example of his own graceful handling of a tricky situation. Joe teaches me to keep things in perspective and reminds me that some things can wait. Most recently, Joe is teaching me about courage and about faith. And I only wish I had his. The third aspect of JoeB Martin, and this is really why we're all here tonight, is that when it comes to race relations, all of us aspire to believe as Joe believes and then to act as Joe acts. In my case, I have been led to believe it and to act on it in a large part by Joe. Joe is anything but colorblind. Instead, he is keenly aware of our differences and how they add meaning to our lives and strength to our community. More than anyone I know, Joe also recognizes the cost, the realities, the disparities, and the negative consequences of allowing color to divide us. The son and the father of ordained Presbyterian ministers, Joe lives by the passage in Ephesians where the Apostle Paul writes, "We are members one of another." His rare blend of intellect and empathy, reason and compassion, fairness and faith give him a view of the world that is equitable and ethical, sometimes tough and always demanding. Joe is a liberal thinker in the classical sense, with the capacity and the discipline to assess every dynamic independently. As a result, he almost always stands for the right thing, even if it sometimes means standing alone. Most of all, though, JoeB Martin acts. He combines idealism and action. And while our society incessantly divides itself, Joe dwells on the common ground. He calls us all to that common ground, and he shows us what we can accomplish there together. Joe rarely leaves behind his own fingerprints, but our city and our region are molded, built up, and immeasurably improved by his hands. In his work entitled Outwitted, the American poet Edwin Markham wrote these lines: "He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in." Love and wit, two words that captured JoeB Martin's ethos in remarkable brevity. And for almost all of his life, Joe has been drawing an ever-widening circle to take us all in. That is his mission. It is a mission for all of us in this room, and it remains for all of us to complete, not just for Charlotte and our children and grandchildren, but for America and its children and grandchildren. Now it is my pleasure to introduce a video that features a few others who have been advised and taught enlisted and encircled by our friend Joe.
The Whitney M. Young Jr. Award is presented to an individual who has made exceptional and outstanding contributions toward furthering equal opportunity for African Americans and serving as a bridge builder between the races. The Charlotte Mecklenburg Urban League is proud to present the 4th Annual Whitney M. Young Jr. Award to Joseph B. Martin III.
Joe and I and our two brothers, Bubba and Neil, grew up in Winnsboro, South Carolina, in the Presbyterian Manse. Our dad was a Presbyterian minister there, or preacher as we prefer to call him, and Mom was a preacher's wife. Our father, as I said, was a Presbyterian minister, and I think Joe, more than any of the other three of us, was probably more like him in his spirit and approach and attitude about the world. Just as Pop had been a pioneer in South Carolina at trying to soothe the early tensions about race relations, organizing interdenominational, multi-faith council of clergy from all over the state. Just as he was involved in researching our family history and genealogy, Joe was a part of all of those trends.
He's a great individual, and the faith that he had is just built on his father's faith, his mother's faith. I know his mother. I'm her unofficially black son.
To this day, I consider myself to be a good friend of Joe's mom, Mary. In fact, Mary and I shared a common concern for a number of years regarding Joe's future, which, as some of us know, hung in the balance until that very day when Joe married Joni.
Joan, what can you say? She is just, you know, I share with Joe quite often that Joan is a model, and just as I know it. But she is so positive, so real, no phoniness about her. You cannot talk about Joe and Joan without talking about his wonderful kids. They too are so supportive, and they are giving too. You know, his son JoeB is a wonderful individual. Elizabeth is a world traveler now. She's in law school, and his other son David is doing extremely well, and they're very proud of him. And I'm just proud of the whole family. I'm just proud to call him friend.
The first time I met Joe was about 20 years ago, and he was contacted at NCNB looking at employment opportunities for Indian people here in Charlotte. And he was wonderfully receptive and took it on personally to look for opportunities not only at NCNB, but he also encouraged other employees to look to the Indian community for employment.
Joe and his family provide a scholarship for students interested in coming to Davidson that express an interest in a possible religious vocation.
He worked with the parent committee, a volunteer committee in the school system, working with efforts at keeping Indian children in school, finding ways to help them succeed, and ultimately he and his bank sponsored honor ceremonies for us to recognize the children at the end of the school term.
I think Joe has had numerous influences on Davidson, especially in terms of allowing students to express and clarify their desire to go into the area of religion. In encouraging Davidson students through the scholarship that they give and through his interactions with them, I think Joe helps all of us to realize that to whom much is given, much is expected.
I would say that he is a person who has a real feeling for excellence in education and how, through his work with the school board, to really bring that into a broad-scaled approach. He combines this intellectual insight and vision with a very practical bent, and that's a powerful combination.
I first met Joe when he was working in Jim Martin's first congressional campaign, and I was a flunky in that campaign, and Joe was a trying to run it like he tries to do everything, and I was very impressed with him. And I was in recruiting as one of my functions, and I began recruiting him. He wrote to me subsequently. I think he was with RCA at the time. And he outlined his background, and I wrote back and told him that we didn't have any positions for PhDs in medieval history, but I thought we might find something at the bank, and it was one of the best hires this company's ever made. We talk a lot about the meritocracy, and that to me is one of the things that signifies Joe Martin, and that he looks at people in terms of what they can do and what they can achieve, and not any other way.
Joe is an unapologetic believer that America can be a place for all people. And I guess what impressed me about him was that he wasn't apologetic about his past, but he was very hopeful about the future of America. There's no question that Joe Martin is a mentor for me, despite the fact that we grew up in different times and in different places. The fact that he is so willing to be upfront with me about what he thinks allows us to have some pretty interesting discussions about things that are on my mind.
A lot of people don't know this, but Joe pretty much took in an African-American child and gave him the best of opportunities to make it in this society.
He's done a lot for me. I mean, I can go on for years as far as like what he's done for me, but he's done a lot of things for me that no one has done. I mean, I can't even say that my family members have done the things that he's done. He told me he likes to like help out people who want success, and I guess you can say I want success. I've told him thank you a million times, but I guess I have to tell him thank you a million more times.
Joe is fundamentally inclusive in the way he thinks and involves people. It is his style to bring people together to seek a common solution. And what I think we see in Joe that has fundamentally affected our company is the strength of moral conviction. He is kind of a moral tether to us in a way that I'm not sure that anybody else could have played the same role. His intellect is great, but his conviction is greater.
Joe doesn't see race, and he doesn't see gender. He's a purist in that sense. He sees the human qualities in people. He sees people and is never distinguished. It's really an amazing quality, and I think that's part of what this award is all about. It recognizes the purity of his, of the man.
He understands, unlike most people, that when you talk about diversity and inclusiveness, it's not just something that you're doing for another group. It's something that you're doing because it makes common sense. It makes all of us better to have everyone participate.
If there ever been a human being that really wanted to do all the right things and love people and really wanted to reach out and help somebody, it's certainly been Joe.
I'm happy to congratulate my good friend Joe Martin as he receives the Charlotte Mecklenburg Urban League's Whitney Young Award. I first met Joe through the Southern Growth Policies Board when I was governor of Arkansas several years ago. Like everyone who's ever spent any time with Joe, I was struck by his rare combination of intellect, wit, and compassion. And as I came to know him, I was inspired not only by his deeply held conviction that we must help one another make the most of our lives, but by his determination to act on that conviction. Joe could have chosen to be many things, a preacher, a scholar, even a diplomat. And the truth is, he is and has been all those things and more. In devoting his life to erasing economic and social barriers, he's helped so many people, and he's touched every life whose path crossed with his. I know he has sure touched mine. Congratulations, Joe. I hope to see you in Jones soon, and I hope this is a wonderful occasion.
glad you all sat back down. I thought you were leaving before I could. It'd be a shame if you left before I could thank you for coming. George Battle is going to be up here in a minute with Elizabeth Randolph, and I have to say that I have a distinct memory of meeting George for the first time more than 20 years ago, George, on the 40th floor at the old NCNB building at a reception. And I thought then that, you know, that skinny little preacher is going to turn out to be somebody. One of the things he did not turn out to be was skinny. But George has brought joy to our family and instruction and guidance when we needed it, and comfort when we needed it as well. And I'm happy to accept the award from him and from Elizabeth Randolph. Every time I see her, I want to give her a hug just to find out if she's real. If you listen to what everybody says about her, you think she's a figment of our collective civic imagination. I guess I should tell you that one of the difficulties of ALS, which I have, is a difficulty in emotion control. And so if we have a problem with that, we just have a problem with that, and we get over it. I have noticed that when I have a problem, it seems to be contagious, and everybody else starts crying too. So what we do is just take a deep breath and a drink of water, not at the same time, and get on with the show. It's a terrible moral dilemma when someone offers you an award that you do not deserve, but that you do covet. And then they tell you you have to accept it in public. It took several days before I could give Bill Sims an answer. I asked myself, do I deserve the award? The answer is clearly no. But would I like to be on a list with Julius Chambers, George Battle, and Elizabeth Randolph with an award honoring Whitney Young? Well, the answer was yes. I would lie, cheat, and steal to be on that list. But I do sincerely thank my friends at the Urban League who knew that this award would mean more to me than any other award you could imagine. And I thank them, and I thank you for coming. I also want to thank those of you who are in the video, and knowing what I would have said about you, I was relieved. I actually was quite surprised at a few of you turning out to be friends of Bill. Joan, I think he just invited us to use the Lincoln Bedroom. And I want you to know, if you ask me, I'm going. I want to thank the Johnson C. Smith University Choir for being here at my request. Are they not the best-looking group of young people you've seen? It makes me think the future is in very good hands. In the last few years, my medical situation has tempted me to play what if. What if this had happened? What if that had not? I really couldn't find very many things that would have made much of a difference had they played out in a different way. But one of those hit me hard, and that was the question, what if, are we going to get through this? The question was, what if Hugh McColl had not been my friend? I wouldn't have had a job, for one thing. But I do think that's a momentous question for me and for the city. And Hugh, I thank you for me and the city for being our friend. Lynn, this is going to go longer than you said, but they're clapping and laughing on their time. I want to introduce a few people who came with me. My father's favorite wedding story was about the preacher who said to the groom, "Do you take this woman for better or for worse?" And the groom said, "How can I tell so soon?" Well, I could tell from the start 33 years ago, and I was right. This is the person who keeps making my life better and better and better, my wife, Joan. Now, if you'll hold your applause, I'll point out some other people I think you might like to know. Joan's parents, and I'll ask them to stand as I introduce them. Joan's parents, John and Dorothy Werners, and her sister Catherine from Minneapolis, who are the best in-laws you can imagine. No, you have to hold your applause or we're never going to get out of here. At about 10 o'clock, I turned into a pumpkin, and so... also our children, David and Elizabeth and JoeB, and our daughter-in-law, Jody, who is back there with our grandson, Joseph Bacon Martin V. And yes, he is the cutest baby in the whole world. Then there's Darius, whom you met on the video. Darius actually has a family of his own, but he works himself into the hearts of everybody he knows, and we just won't let him go. My brother Jim, right here, stand up, they don't know you. For one, these are my friends. And my brother Neil, who is over here, and Bubba couldn't get here from Mississippi, don't laugh. If you were named Bubba, where would you want to live? Well, that's right. Some place where your name would bring honor and respect. This is more fun than it's supposed to be. My sisters-in-law, Dottie and Mary, Jackie is with Bubba, nieces and nephews and cousins and aunts and uncles from all over. I wish that you could all enjoy the anxiety down here and discomfort on the front row. People are squirming around and pointing covertly to my mother as if I had forgotten Mama. Not yet, Mama, not yet. They must think I'm crazy or suicidal. People who wonder how I've survived so many years with Hugh McColl have never met Mama. Had the world been different in 1912, she would have grown up to be chairman of Nations Bank. And I probably wouldn't have had a job. but as it was, she did better than that. She grew up to be a world-class mother to Bubba, Jimmy, Joby, and Neil. And to quite a few not so innocent bystanders. This is the best friend you could have, Mary Martin. For several years, I've been working on a book about two teenagers, one black and one white, who struggle with friendship as they grow up in the South in the 1950s. As you can imagine, with teenagers in the 50s, it's a pretty funny story. But there's this sadness at its core that will not go away no matter how funny I try to be. As both boys begin to understand that their friendship is never going to mature. I actually care about them. They don't even exist. But it's as if some deadly destructive thing, something they don't know how to discuss, something they didn't do and don't even know, some mysterious, incurable thing in the environment has infected their relationship and will ultimately stunt its growth or kill it. And I wonder if that doesn't describe where we are. All of us in our relationships with each other. My father was confident that the South would ultimately achieve racial reconciliation, that our character, our shared history, would somehow triumph. It hasn't, not yet. And why not? Maybe because that shared history of slavery and segregation and racism is something that we don't deal with. Maybe it's like a debilitating disease that we don't want to have, don't want to see a doctor about, don't want to talk about, don't want to think about. Nobody wants it, none of us. We all want it to go away. But it's there. It keeps nagging at us. This racism keeps popping up as some surprising, irrational fear, some anger, some disability or dysfunction that paralyzes our civic life, something that keeps separating us from each other so we don't have to confront it. A lot of people have been out there fighting it in the streets, in the courts, in the legislatures, and there has been progress. But maybe the racism that keeps us apart is not out there on the street, not out there in some jury room, not out there on some state house dome. It's not out there at all, it's in here. It's in this room, it's in here, and it's in here. But what if we were to recognize that our shared history of slavery, segregation, and racism is a terrible diagnosis that we haven't yet come to grips with, a kind of civic trauma that we haven't yet dealt with? What if we stop denying it and start defying it? I don't think we even imagine, let alone know, what might be possible. I do think that by actually sharing our shared history for a change, by facing this trauma together, we can turn race into a positive force that enriches our lives. In his book on the biology of hope, Norman Cousins reminds us that fear, anger, hate, frustration, and despair are all damaging to our health, and that love, hope, faith, joy, laughter, festivity, sense of purpose, determination, and will to live can bring healing power. Think about race. Which list comes to mind? What if we just put away fear and anger and hate and frustration and despair and overwhelm it with love, hope, faith, joy, laughter, festivity, sense of purpose, determination, and will to live? You can tell that list has become very important to me. But we can do that. Bill Sims has called for a summit on race for the whole community next fall. I'm in favor of that. We know one company that would be glad to help pay for it, don't we, Hugh? Yeah, you had the same thought, that's right. Trans America. But we need that summit. We need to talk about race. We need to have information to build a consensus on where we are. example. My young friends from Johnson C. Smith University hear me say that we need to appreciate progress, that we've come a long way. They think I'm quaint at best. They think that the economic gap between blacks and whites in Charlotte has actually increased, that we may have come a long way, but that some of us have used the undeserved privilege that we were born to come farther than others. I can't tell you how much I want them to be wrong, but I'm not sure. And I hope the Urban League will present economic data at Sims's Summit to make us face the facts. I don't know what you want to do about it. All that's over my head. Here's what I'm going to do. While Bill is working on a racial summit, I'm going to work on racial molehills. I'm declaring every Thursday between now and Sims's Summit to be Race Day in Charlotte. I don't think I'll get much hate mail. Most people around here will think I'm honoring Jeff Gordon and Richard Petty. And I do, of course, but that's the kind of race we do talk about and celebrate. I want us to deal with the kind of race we don't talk about and don't celebrate. The rules are simple. Every Thursday, I'm going to have lunch with somebody whose racial or ethnic background is different from mine. After 6 days a week with Scotch Presbyterians, Thursdays are going to feel like a festival. And we'll talk about how to turn race into a positive force. Or maybe we won't talk about that at all. We might just talk about who we are, where we came from, and who we know. But we're going to look at pictures of my grandson. But we're going to find the things that connect us, that can bring us love, hope, faith, joy, laughter, festivity, sense of purpose, determination, and willingness to live together. Now, if you were to do that too, this is really just for me, but if you were going to do it too, think of it. If just 10 people in this room, that's less than 1%. If 10 people decided to have lunch next Thursday with someone of a different racial background, that'd be 20 people. And then if they all decided to do it the next Thursday, well, that'd be 40, and 80 the next. She was getting nervous about my arithmetic. But there'd be 80 the next week. In 6 weeks, there'd be more than 1,000 people. And by the first Thursday in June, there'd be 81,920 of us. By fall, if you turned up for lunch on race day anywhere in Charlotte with somebody from your own race, you'd feel a little bit uncomfortable. You'd think that everybody in the restaurant was looking at you kind of funny. And you could swear the head waiter pursed his lips before seating you at a table in the back. And your service would seem a little slow. You'd certainly wonder what's all the joy, laughter, and festivity going on at all the other tables. Okay, I know what you're thinking. I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Well, I had to go to a lot of trouble to get to that line. Lord knows we have enough guilt already, but I do want to point out that if you don't play, by the last race day in October, there'll be 1,000 empty tables just because of you. So somebody in here better invite me to lunch next Thursday. It'll be embarrassing for people to see me trying to do racial reconciliation sitting at a table all by myself. Now the Smith Choir is going to come back on stage to sing something they asked me to request. And I request, I don't know why that's funny. I thought it was nice that they asked, and I didn't know what else they would sing. But I asked for a song called Worlds Apart, which the slave Jim and Huck Finn sing to each other in Big River. It reminds us that Jim was a person of dignity and value who was made a slave, and that Jim and Huck yearned for a friendship that would transcend that fact more than 100 years ago. And then they tell me they're going to sing a second song which they think will surprise me, and I'm not sure exactly how surprised I'm going to be. While they're coming up here, I want you to do something, all of you. Remember the Langston Hughes poem, "What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or does it explode?" For 40 years, we have recited that as a warning that things might explode, but they have exploded over and over. Another explosion is not what we have to fear. The thing we have to fear is that the dream gets tired of exploding. The thing we have to fear is we can't get through this sentence. The thing we have to fear is that the dream gets tired of exploding and just dries up like a raisin in the sun. That's the bleak prospect that threatens our future. We have to stop thinking about explosions with fear and anger and hate and start figuring out how to keep hope alive with love, hope, faith, joy, and all those things. Keep hope alive. It's what Jesse Jackson keeps saying to young people, but we're the ones who need to hear it. If we keep dealing with race through fear and anger and hate, hope doesn't have a chance. If we start dealing with race through love, hope, faith, joy, laughter, festivity, well, we do not know what is possible. How much time do we have? I don't know, but they're growing up fast. I don't even know how many Thursdays I can get up and go to lunch. But I feel pretty good about next Thursday if someone will invite me. And I know I have this one. And that's what you have too. You have this moment. Why not use it to commit to yourself that you'll find ways to turn race into a positive force in your life. Commit to these young people in the choir that will turn race into a positive force in their world. Remember that the love of God is a far more compelling history that we share, a privilege into which we were all born, a privilege we do not deserve but cannot deny. Why not let the love of God shape our relationships with each other? Let it surround these young people and support their dreams. Let it keep hope alive. And I hope you will do that as you listen to them sing. And remember that no matter how big a deal racism or racial reconciliation or Sim's Summit may be, it may actually depend on all the little molehills you can make for yourself. So I'll see you next Thursday. Everybody, sing well. Thank you. Gotta sit down. I forgot I'm supposed to accept an award. Somebody come and give it to me quick. What? No, George just said I shouldn't rush him. I wasn't in a hurry. And tell me you forgot it.
I told him to say it.
It's behind the choir. It's in the kitchen with the bottle.
Well, this is certainly one of the highlights of my life.
Mine too.
First of all, Joe raised all the money for me to run for bishop, and I'm grateful.
I thought you said that was my ticket to heaven.
Oh. I won't.
A heck of a lot better than the Lincoln
Joe. Libby and I want you to know that heaven is made for folks like you.
Right.
This Urban League Award is presented to Charlotte Mecklenburg Urban League Whitney M. Young Jr. Award, presented to JoeB Martin III, 1997, and to his wife and children, and mom, brothers, and family from everywhere. I'm honored to be associated with you and to present you this award.
Oh, do I get Elizabeth? Hey, Elizabeth. I thank you.
Oh, bless you.
She's real.
Oh, bless you. I love you.
You're so wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you know, you will just love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
And look at the camera. That's good. Thank you.
I have it over.
George, will you help her down the steps? Yeah, we need to get out of the way so they can sing.
must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine. You always walked a step behind. So I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name, a beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that your